I want to start by saying I had reservations to even continue with this. And I shared this with Jill and Linda last night. I was telling you guys, I had concerns because right now there's things happening around us, and I want to make sure there's space for those things. I want to make sure the conversation allows space to hear the voices of those who need to be heard and recognize, those who need more from us. And I decided to move forward, and for everyone's, for me to clarify that, I decided to move forward because I felt like culture is what allows those conversations to happen. What your culture stands on provides for difficult conversations. And so, we may not be addressing all of those things, but I think what you do to build the culture in your environment, whether it be your workplace, the culture of your family, your friend circles, I would encourage you to make sure you're building a culture that allows and provides for difficult conversations. And I think right now that's what our team is working through. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for understanding the place that we come into this at. And hopefully we will all listen with an open mind. And I can't wait to chat. So Linda and Jill, please, by all means, ask away. It's 21 questions, right?
All right. Well, I'm going to go first, or if Jill starts asking questions, I may not get to ask mine. So anyway, Leah, you started by saying we're in a unique time, and you talk a lot about culture in your program. And obviously we're dealing with the COVID situation, and now we've got a lot of issues that are on the forefront with social justice. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you have like Zoom meetings with your players, and you're in contact with your players. So can you maybe broaden that a little bit, like to the behind the scenes, and lift the curtain for us a little bit and talk about how some of these national issues are affecting your players, and how that you're using some of this to prepare for the upcoming season?
Yeah, I think that's the challenge. And gosh, where to even begin, right? But that's where we have to start. And as leaders, both leaders within the team and as coaches, as you guys know, and many of you tuning in, it is our job to provide a space for those conversations. So let me kind of back up to COVID and when we went on break, and then maybe I can take you through what we did leading up to today and present time. So, when we were told that we would not be returning, we were just entering our spring season, and spring season is where we get to compete. And we had put together a pretty challenging schedule. We had 3 Big Ten teams on our schedule, and we were wanting to compete at that level in the off season in prep for season. And when the news hit, everyone was still processing. So our team gets sent home after spring break. We take a week off. And here's the thing about culture, and every place is a little different. But what I felt for us is that I was going to meet everyone in a different spot. They were at home in different environments. They were in different states who practiced different rules and different leadership styles. But what we could do was control what was normal for us. And a lot of that is our relationships, because having that relationship and that connection. And so we decided building a routine was going to be really important to allow everyone to reset and start their day with something positive. And so we met every morning at 8:30, or maybe it was earlier if you ask the team. It might have been 7:30. We met every morning, and we spent 4 days a week together on an hour and a half Zoom call. And in the spring, what we would normally do is work on, our fitness, our conditioning, and then our technical skills. Well, obviously part of that's taken from us. We can't use a ball and we're not with our strength coach. So we started mapping out how to work on our mind and our eyes. So we spent 2 days a week watching film as a group, breaking down different film elements. And we spent 2 days a week having team discussions on learning and change. And our first discussion was about psychological safety. How do you create a space where everyone feels safe enough to have a voice, to take a risk, to fail and be lifted back up, to be supported through change? And, you talk about our current climate leading us to today. It's that's what we need. We need that psychologically safe space in our circles to have those conversations. And now, you know, the conversation of racial and social injustice. So that was April, and then May, we took a step back. Now we're in June. The NCAA has never given us, you know, Linda, they've never given us access to volleyball athletes. You know, obviously with basketball, Jill, they do allow some contact. So I've
Right.
never had this much time with my players in the summer, and they're just like, Coach, I'm sick of you, you know. But it's important. And so here we are meeting. We don't meet 4 days a week like we did in the spring, because the spring's a grind, and I'm kind of crazy, and I felt like we still needed to grind. But then you get to the summer, and now it's about relationships. Everything we do is based on relationship. So in May, we did speed chats where each player went one-on-one in a room, and the goal was to deepen our relationship. Kind of as that reflection, you know, as I talked about the psychological safety element, how do you deepen a relationship individually one-on-one so that is a safer space to be when we all join together? And they asked the best questions. I mean, I can't tell you how many players stumped me when I got into their room, you know, asking me like, what are you most proud of? What's your goals in the next 3 years? Well, that's hard when I'm sitting in a position where, you know, I want to say coaching you, but life changes sometimes, right? And don't get me wrong, everyone, I'm not going anywhere. But those are the things. And that's them being honest and real with me and really caring, you know, to a coach. And these questions, they just think so deeply. And so now in June, we're going to pivot because the climate has changed.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about social injustice. We're going to have those conversations. Our first meeting was last night since the, you know, initial death of George Floyd. And we talked about it, just how everyone was feeling. And we set the tone that next Sunday, we're going to have a deeper conversation. And candidly, I don't know what that looks like yet.
Yeah.
You know, I'm having to step back and self-reflect and be self-aware of the place that I'm entering this conversation at and what I have control over. And so, but you know, you said, how does this prepare you for season? Every conversation you have that helps you deepen a relationship, connect, hear, listen, demonstrate love, that's going to help you in the season. Probably more, and I would guess you guys can agree, than any touch we can get on the ball right now.
I totally agree, Leah. I think how players feel about one another has a huge impact on your program. But I've always thought also that sports are a platform for us to teach life lessons, and your interactions and your communication is part of that. But you have even a broader approach. How do you, in your program, teach life lessons to your kids?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a lot of small things that happen along the way, and that I believe add up to this life lesson situation. And candidly, I think it's everyone in the program. I mean, I'm going through life lessons right now, and to be better for them. That's what we want. We want to every day grow and be better for each other. I'm gonna use an example. So with Alyssa Kronberg, and she is for those of you who don't know, she's a defensive specialist who joined our program as a sophomore. She's a rising senior. And when she came in, you know, she came from a different environment with different values and different experiences, and everyone is different. But it took her a while to adjust to the standard of Redbird volleyball, to the way we communicate, and we sit down and we talk about our strengths and weaknesses on a regular basis. We talk about our goals. We talk about, you know, we use a concept called compete with love. Like, why and how is this person winning time on the court, for example? And how do you still celebrate them while improving yourself? And, you know, through the course of her career so far, these 3 years, I've seen her change in the way she dialogues, the way she has stepped back and looked at herself in this experience, the way she communicates about her team. And what's really cool is what I know where she has completely come out of her shell and just really loves herself within her role. And that's hard to do. You know, I know when I struggled even just as an assistant, because I wanted to have my voice as a head coach one day. And, you know, you go through that, right? And so here's Alyssa learning to go from a libero starting role at her former institution to a DS role here, and in a group of strong leaders. And she has a big personality. She has a great personality. And so she's finding her role as a leader. And the coolest compliment to, you know, that evolution is when her teammates have come in and said, you know, yeah, I was talking to Alyssa. She was telling me to work on this. Or, you know, I got this really note from Alyssa the other day about how proud she was of something I did. And that's a life lesson to me, where when you go through these experiences over and over and you learn to adapt and change and mold and bend, and all the time you're finding yourself and you're enjoying yourself more because of it. And so I mean, I know that, you know, Alyssa's role has changed and evolved, but her impact on our team has been tremendous. And I think, you know, when you're watching the game, not every game is that evident, but the results are there internally. And so you know, it's hard to pinpoint like this thing is the life lesson, but it's those experiences of growth that are.
Leah, let me just try to stay with player development a little bit.
Yeah.
And team development. So you are coached, you've been here with us for 3 years. You've turned out 12 all-conference players, and you're returning 3 all-Missouri Valley Conference players in Steph and Kaylee and Sydney. So can you maybe broaden that a little bit in what you're talking about? Because you've talked to me a little bit about training to peak, but there's also in coaching, you've got some really talented players and a great group of seniors coming back. And now you've got like 6 or 7 incoming freshmen. How do you work through issues like playing time, managing roles, some of the things maybe that those of us that are participants or whatever, they're behind the scenes things, but kids just don't go out on the court and just play. That you've developed a lot of chemistry among those players to have them succeed individually and as a team. Could you maybe broaden on some of those concepts?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So I'll touch back to train to peak, and ultimately, and you know, Jill and Linda, I think you guys are exceptional examples of this, but because every time I talk to you, you're giving someone else credit, always. And that's true in my case too, that we can put an idea in place, but it's the people who execute the idea. It's the student athletes. And so we have a concept of train to peak. And that concept is about knowing what you're good at to start, and then layering on every week, 2 weeks over time, layering on from freshman year to sophomore year, your abilities, your skill. And I think sometimes, you know, in my early coaching career, it was, this is how I'm going to teach this. Everyone's going to learn this right away. You need to know every set in our system. You need to know every defensive move in our system. And the learning curve was slow. The other thing I found was there wasn't great confidence consistently. And our results showed that early. And where I had to change and grow and was embracing more what you're good at to start with. And so in our, even in recruiting, but like specifically in training as a freshman, by the mid-season, I want them to sit in my office and be able to tell me, what is your X factor? Where are you the most elite on the team? What skill right now do you do at a high level that could get you on the court? Let's focus on that. And so, you know, I'm going to talk about Steph a little bit here, and Sid, you know, so Sid, for example, actually starting her career, she was a starting right side. Yeah. And she'd been a middle in high school. And everyone knows last year, first team all conference middle, everyone's probably thinking like, what's wrong with you, coach? Why wasn't she a middle her first year? Good point. But, you know, when she first came in, her mobility at this level needed improvement, but her power didn't. Her power was exceptional. So how do we put her in a position that she can use her power while she's learning to trust her body to be as athletic as it can be, to move the way it needs to move, to have a more dynamic position like a middle that moves so differently. So she was a right side, won a lot of points behind a big arm. And then we layered on. Okay, Sid, her second year, it was, let's start to use the slide as the right side. And then this idea of compete with love, you know, to develop, you've got to be around great players. We want our players to want the other people in their position to be really good. Because I can only know my next level when I'm next to you pushing me, and vice versa. Yeah. And so we saw Sid for a year battle with Monica Miller, who had a great career. And then this year moves back to the middle. And granted, there was an opening that was needed. But Sid's mindset, after 2 years of competing and adding layers to her game, you know, just hitting with power,
yep,
and then adding the slide, now the slide was her best set as a middle. So that's where she scored early this year. But by the end of the year, she was hitting 4 or 5 different sets because we layered on so that she peaked. And, you know, you go into the conference tournament and Sid's still using her strength to score on the slide, but in transition is now hitting cutback, is now hitting wrist away, which means the sidelines, the angles, for those who don't know those expressions. But you know, you develop over time, and you know, that's one person. When you can put players, each person in this mindset that they are very confident in their strengths and confident enough that they can take risks to work on their weaknesses, you're going to build layers and you're going to just continue to peak. And we try to do that as a team as well. I mean, every Monday, you guys, we sit in a meeting, and I'm sure you guys live this life where you sit down and you say, okay, here's what we did this week. Here was the weekend. But what we try to do is show them, this is what we did great. This is still our strength. Here's what we're going to work on this week. And we pick 1 or 2 things, and we may stay on it for 2 weeks before we change. And we talk about layering. And this year our theme was brick by brick. So we just added a brick all year long. Yeah, it was nice. This past season. It was, and you know, you just see that evolution of a team and evolution of a program. And I also think there's no surprises.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they know, they identify with who they are. We've agreed to that. And we start from there as that basis of, this is what I'm good at, and this is where I'm going to grow.
Right. It's been
Do you have a plan then for kids over a 4-year span? Once you bring them in, you analyze what they can contribute and where you can take them?
Yeah. So even in that recruiting process, you know, we sit down and we talk about, you know, here are your attributes right now. And this is where you need to trust that when you come in as a freshman, you add value right away, because you are being recruited because you do this well. You're also being recruited because we believe you're a great learner, right? We believe that these areas where you can evolve in your role, maybe you're going to hit different sets, or you're going to become a 6th rotation player and haven't always been, you know, et cetera, or we're going to shift you to the right side because you show these traits and you're a good learner and you're a hard worker. Because you have to be able to learn and you have to be able to put in the work to do it. But we like to show them from the very beginning. And then we meet with our players. I meet with my players about every 3 weeks. But specifically at the start and end of each year, they get a sheet called their growth sheet. And it shows everything from, you know, physical measurables to stats to their personal strengths and weaknesses that they have written out on paper. And we keep a journal all season long where they continue to make notes to themselves about their growth progress. And we, from one step, we just add the next page.
Great. Well, let me just add it. Joe, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. I was going to
say, that helps kids process what's happening to them without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's their process, right? So, you know, I am nothing without this investment in themselves. And that's where I think when you know, I'm sure we'll get into recruiting, as most people do. It's half my job, right? But when we talk in recruiting, it's this idea that, is this person willing to invest in her? Or is she wanting me to do all the work for her? Because that doesn't work here, candidly. Doesn't mean it can't work somewhere else, but it doesn't work here. You have to demonstrate that you believe in you, and then I'm going to help you to remind you of that when you forget. But there has to be a self-investment that I believe I'm capable. I just need the tools, or I need another resource. I need a different mentor. And I need time, right? We all need time. I need more time, you know, to get better.
Leah, I honestly, just for us, Jill and myself, and so many people, and just a little bit of experience with athletics. I mean, we sit in the stands and we watch your players, and honestly, it is so fun to watch your players come in as freshmen and how they leave as seniors. And it's just not that they're better players, but they also leave with a higher level of confidence in themselves. And I want to give you one little example, because I think you're having some of your players call us oldies but goodies. And Kendall called the other day, and just in chatting with her, I mean, sometimes it's so fun because those of us where we are now, we're learning things from younger players. You learn from them.
Yeah.
And things like that Kendall talked about are such a credit back to your program. And I want to get to a few things that you and I have talked about and how you present your program overall with culture and core values. But some of the things that Kendall said, I'm sure a reflection of some of your other players. They are so appreciative of things that you're talking about. Not that they just become a all conference player, but Kendall's talking about things that she's so thankful about, you teaching them about empowerment, about women in leadership roles, of not sitting back, about speaking out, having the courage to be who they are. Those were powerful things to me in listening to a kid who's going to become a senior. Now, I don't know if she talked about that as a freshman,
Right.
but that's what they're leaving with. And so I kind of want to bridge into some of that. I mean, I think that's a credit to your leadership, but you know, at the very beginning, when you present your program, I've heard you present it in terms of three prongs, or core values and the culture of your program.
Yeah.
But you have some vernacular for that. Could you share that with the participants?
Yeah, thank you. And that's a really cool story. You know, I say to my team all the time, it's those third-party remarks or compliments or feedback. I call it a feedback loop. Like if they're messaging what I think I'm saying, then it's working. And if I'm not getting that message, then it's not working and I have to change, you know? And so I appreciate you sharing that. And I will say, you know, in all the conversations I have with Kendall, I remember as a freshman, there was this eagerness, but centering herself to know what she was wanting to say and knowing when to say it. She always was one to speak up. I've always been so proud of Kendall for having a voice, and she shows love to her teammates. I mean, she is the first to reach out to someone and make sure they know that they're appreciated or that they made an impact on the team, whatever it might be. But now what I think is really cool is like she's learning where her voice adds value and where her voice distracts. You know, we all want to be a leader, so we think we need to be louder or more often or whatever it is. And she's like, well, I don't, you know, Coach, I think this is something you need to have Steph do or say to the team. I don't think this is something they're going to hear from me. I mean, talk about awareness.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about being the one that says it. It's about what needs to be said or what needs to happen or what the change needs to be. So that's really like, I just give a lot of credit to Kendall there, because it takes a lot to step back and be like, okay, this is who I am. And I know this now. I really own this now. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, caveat there. Okay. Core values. We're back. We're back.
How about that 3-prong thing? You've got 3 key words you use.
Yeah. So in our program, we don't operate by a lot of rules. I tell that to the recruits. The team knows that we operate by choices. And if your choices fall under our core values and they're parallel and they measure up to that, pardon me, I have allergies, then we're in a good place. Our values being tradition, service, and growth. And that's what we talk about all the time. I think it's one thing to have values or have these words in your locker room. It's another thing to weave them in to the fabric of what you do every day. And that's a constant effort. I'm not perfect at it. You know, I will forget, but we try really hard. Our team tries really hard to make these relevant concepts. And so when we talk about tradition, that's really history. And it's about recognizing that our success is standing on a foundation. And, you know, I look to the two of you, the foundation of women coaches. and the foundation, Linda specifically, for the leadership of the volleyball program. And I'm standing on that and being recognized in some ways, but really there's the alumni who I've heard these amazing stories from, who built this, who built Illinois State on a national stage, who built the concept of Illinois State striving to be a premier program in our league, who values postseason appearances based on a process, not just the one result, because it's work. So that's tradition, and we want to make sure our players understand that. We, something we did last year is we did a 2 years ago was leave a legacy, and we had our alumni send in, whoever wanted, send in a letter to talk about what it meant to wear the Redbird jersey. Yeah. And we read that to our team before each match. We picked one or two and read them. And just this connection, right? It's relationships again. You're not the only one who's been nervous in this moment. This isn't the first time that you've had to change your role on the team. It's not, this isn't this first, there's never really a first. Yeah. There's a first for you. And how do I connect that to the traditions to give you confidence that you're first and you're capable? And so that's kind of the tradition idea. The second one is service. And you could kind of say service is code for leadership, right? But it is that. It is leadership. But we want our message to always be not like, you need to be a leader. Now, how do you serve someone else? So we ask at the end of every meeting, and I personally try to do this. And I think when they're freshmen, here's the evolution of life lessons, right? So I ask at the end of every player meeting, how can I better serve you? And I sit there and there's this awkward pause, and it's awesome, and they're just like, what does that mean? Is there a right answer? And my freshmen early on are like, I mean, it's nothing. It's great, coach. This is great. Yeah, it's good. Sophomores are like, things are pretty good. I like this. Or my juniors and seniors are giving me an earful, and telling me like, well, I think, just in May, I said, we met 4 days a week in April. The NCAA just granted us this brand new opportunity to connect, but do you guys really do you need some time? Like, do you want to see each other every day? Do you want to see me every day? And they're like, no, I don't. Okay, good. Let's not do that then. But that's how I can serve them. And but teaching and modeling that tool of listening is leadership, and giving space to have an opinion about something, easy or hard, doesn't matter. Right. So we say that all the time. And service also being like, did you serve your teammates with your work ethic today? Because if you did not max out, you did not serve the greater cause of our development. All those concepts. And then obviously into the community. And that I say that obviously, but that takes work too. And that takes time. And I think our players, they do much of that on their own. Yeah. And just as a personal character trait. And then, sorry, I'm windy here. This is where I live, right?
I know, I love it.
Good. So the other is growth, and this is about the development. We've kind of touched on that, so I won't hound it again. But this idea of knowing who you are. Every practice we come in, even in a practice, we have the first part of our practice is confidence contacts, meaning we do things that we believe are our strengths for the first 30 to 40 minutes. And we trust them, we lean into them. That's what we're going to do when the game's on the line. This is what we go back to. Then we have a growth area of practice. And this is our focus point for the week or the quarter, and positions might be different. And then individual meetings, we're talking about personal growth. What do you want to work on right now? Are you trying to speak up in meetings? Are you trying to connect better with your professors? What can I help you do? But always with the growth, but to serve one another through that. So, that's the root and the foundation of our culture. And we try to build everything off of those questions and those actions. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. I love that. So.
Yeah, I want to take that another step then, because when you talk about service and leadership, I hear so many coaches in this day and age actually complain that it's so hard to find players with leadership qualities, and believer, without player leadership, you cannot lead from the bench. The players have to find a way to lead on the court. What you do within your program to develop the leaders like Steph and like Kendall and the role that they play within your leadership?
Yeah. This is the question I keep asking myself every year. Am I giving them enough tools so that when it's hard, they don't need me? Right? Like that's the question I have to ask. Like, is this going to prepare them to not need me? The less I am needed, the better our leadership is, the more prepared they are. Doesn't mean they can't consult me, but typically if they come in and they have the answer or they have the idea first, then we've equipped them. And when I'm not getting that feedback, then I know there's a gap and I need to equip them. So, I kind of start with that premise of leadership. The other premise I start with, and I think you're right, we go to these coaching conventions and everyone's like, kids aren't leading anymore, the millennials or da-da-da. And yes, but no. And I say that because it's a matter of seeing what they come in with, right? So if everyone has a leadership quality. Some people are stabilizers. They just bring you the same thing every single day. Like in our gym, I know what I'm getting from Sarah Kushner and her work ethic every day.
Wow.
She is our motor. I mean, she doesn't quit. I cannot keep up. Like she is just circling. And I'm like, Sarah, you got to take a day off, girl. You're tired, And she's like, all right, coach, I'll go home, But there's this recognizing what they bring to start and helping them trust that. So we do a leadership council. And in our leadership council, we have a captain, which is Steph, and a co-captain, which is Kendall. And I talked about Kendall a little bit, recognizing where her voice is, adding value or is serviceable and where it maybe is detracting.
Yeah.
So right now, I've really seen those two grow in their roles where it's, Steph is kind of our director. She's kind of going to enforce. People are going to listen. Kendall, I think, has found a role as, I'm going to call it the nurturer. And who knows what the team says. I think this to be generally accurate if they were to step back and think about it. But Kendall's the one who is going to remind you of your strengths, going to remind you that you're valued and you belong. And that combination, and don't get me wrong, they both do the other. Yeah. They both do the other, but these are where their strengths lie. Steph can speak boldly and candidly and not be misunderstood, where Kendall needs to be supportive to help make the same thing happen. And so, in us kind of training leadership, when we sit in the leadership council, Steph sits in every single one, but then every other player on the team rotates through the council if we're able to make that happen that year. So they sit in there and we give them leadership goals. So each week, and I like it that Steph's there every week because it holds me accountable. I don't get to say something to this person and then go say it differently to someone else, right? Like that transparency is important. I might try. No. Okay. So we sit in there and in those times I will say, all right, Carly Nicholson, how are the liberos feeling this week? Obviously you have battled some injuries. How is your body feeling? What are you hearing from your group? And I'll get that feedback. And then I'll say, okay, do you think we need to limit reps? Should we cut out the passing session tomorrow? And just taking that and changing it and evolving, giving them a space to learn to have a voice. Carly is kind of like Sarah, where there's a motor. Let me kind of refer to Katie Warmerskirch, because when I recruited Katie, I love them all. I love Katie, and she's out there working. I see her athleticism. I see her movement. I see off the court, she's connecting with her teammates. She seems to have a very good rapport. On the court, personality is soft, kind of tempered, calm, quiet. But also I'm like, okay, she's collected. She's not easily rattled. But what you want is someone who's bossing people around too, because you have to do that as a libero. But I try not to box them into one picture of leadership. So when I talk to Katie, even through the recruiting process, it's, Katie, my challenge for you is your teammates listen to you. I see it on the side. There are moments where you have to use the other side of your voice. It's not going to be exactly what defines you, because your leadership is calm, collected, steady confidence. Yes. But there's a moment and often where you have to be more demanding. And so let's learn that. Let's work on that, because I've got to be uncomfortable sometimes too. I've got to go talk to my boss and say, I want this for my program, or I have to go talk to my player and say, I'm sorry, I'm making a change in the lineup. Here's what we can do to try to work you back. Those are not easy conversations.
Right.
That's not easy, but I still have to do it. And so that's how I try to address leadership, where everyone gets involved. And then there's other leadership roles, you know. Sorry, I'm still going. My brain's just turning, right? Yeah. So like SAC, we have representatives on SAC. So Kendall and Steph both serve on SAC, but Kendi Hilliard's also joined SAC. And this is a great space for her to have leadership. And she's such an outgoing person. I feel like she knows everyone on campus, and she's been here for 3 semesters, you know, and here she is wanting to impact change for the entire student body. And she and I have been talking about how, you know, Kendi, can you get more input from me before you go to those meetings? Because I think sometimes it's not about hearing your echo chamber. It's about delivering information between echo chambers. And that's your role as a leader right now. And so she's really embraced that and wants to pursue, you know, leadership in athletics. And so that's the avenue that I think fits her. So those are some examples. I kind of all over the place, but leadership is, you're constantly working leadership in every conversation you have.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes I'm terrible at it. You just are, is how it goes.
You're great at. Yeah, you know, when I was talking with Kendall, I said, so Kendall, how do you like being a captain? She goes, well, you know, I'm a co-captain. She goes like, and so she said, now, and Steph's got to be the tough guy. And I goes, I can be soft. And she goes, I really like it that way.
Yeah. So there you go. Yes.
I know. It was like, I thought, well, she's got it. She's got to roll down well. And there she said, I'm really comfortable in my skin, and I'm comfortable with what our roles are. So that was really pretty cool.
Yeah, that is so awesome.
Yeah, she articulates that just the way you explained it. But
yeah,
you know,
I love that.
When you talk about some of the things you just like brought up, and leadership, like Jill brought up leadership, and of course she's really big into that. And so I was thinking, like, could you give us a thumbnail sketch of like your recruiting class that's coming in, maybe not individual by individual, and how you take that culture and that coaching philosophy and use that to determine who you're going to recruit?
Sure. So let's see, I'll start with who we're bringing in, okay? And
great.
We have we have a very deep class, and they're incredibly athletic. I got to pull up a list, you guys. This is how, there's so many, but it's important. So we're bringing in 3 pin hitters, which means an outside and a right side. Our pin attackers usually play on both. Eventually, based on their strengths, they'll start to specialize in one. So Sarah Jacobson from the Quad Cities up here in Illinois, Caitlin Prodinsky from Minnesota, and Tam Otine from New Zealand. And she actually is, we were connected with her due to Stacey Meow, who is a former player here, reached out to us and said, you know, we have a great athlete here, and I think character and qualities, she'd be a great fit for Illinois State. Would you guys take a look? And, you know, just a phenomenal player. So bringing in depth in the pin hitter position. And I'm sure in some worlds that's controversial because we have a lot of depth in our pin hitters position already, but they get 50% of the sets. You know, we will play 3 to 4 of them any given match in one position. Depth is important, and the more you can compete, the better you're going to be. So that's part of that recruiting philosophy, that they understand. You know, a lot of the questions we get is, how many people are you recruiting this position? And my answer is, we're always recruiting your position. Always. There isn't a number. I don't have a max. I don't have a minimum. We're going to continue to recruit and compete and train and love each other along the way. So those are pin hitters. We're bringing in a middle, Cassie Jordan from Ohio. We also have a junior college middle, unfortunately, for really ridiculous NCAA rules. I can't tell you her name, but she's phenomenal. So we add some veterans into this class. It's a big class, but there is a veteran in that class and has been a starting middle, stands at 6'3". So excited about those two.
Yeah.
A setter from Austria, and Nora Janka, and she has been setting and competing in her youth national teams. So we're excited to see her get in and compete with Steph and challenge each other, even conceptually, about what the setting role means, because international volleyball looks different.
Yeah.
So we like the idea of that diversity, adding an element into our gym. And then we bring in a libero, Jess Ambrose from the Chicagoland area, the Naperville area. So it's a deep class. But, you know, when we're talking to them, we're talking about culture. That's the main conversation. Your skill set spoke for itself. Now, do you have this growth mindset? Do you have the will to serve others first? You know, and do you value the tradition that we have at Illinois State? If that's important to you, you're going to want to put on this jersey. And so that's kind of how we sketch out, you know, our class and what they kind of the questions we like them to answer or think through in their decision process.
Well, obviously there's a lot that goes on to putting points on the board and beating your opponent, and I'm sure you guys are all about trying to compete for championships. And I mean, when you look at it right now, you have put our program in a position where for the first time since 96 and 97, Illinois State has won back-to-back championships, gone to 2 NCAA tournaments back-to-back. That's the first time that's happened now in 13, 14 years. And the crowd that you put in with beating Illinois and beating UNI, and then first team ever to be the number 3 seed in a tournament and win the championship. But along with that, those accolades, and congratulations on leading Illinois State to that position. But maybe our participants would like to hear a little bit about like how you also build a championship program in terms of scheduling. What's your philosophy about non-conference scheduling? How then do you take that into approaching to the Missouri Valley Conference season? And really maybe at the end, if you can remember this part of it, who's going to be our challenge in the Valley again?
Yeah. Well, gosh, so, you know, thank you so much for recognizing, you know, the last few years, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort by a lot of people. I mean, our support staff's amazing. I feel like Illinois State values the sport of volleyball and women's athletics to give us those opportunities to build the success year after year. And like I said, I think our team recognizes the tradition that this is the goal. You know, it is the goal to put in the work, to be the standard of excellence, to achieve a championship. And, you know, I try to explain to the team, like, we're going to train as champions every day. If we become champions, that's the bonus. But if we can leave each practice and felt like we put in a championship effort, we're going to get there. And, you know, I think that's the concept where we talk about championship culture. It's not just the championship. And, you know, we got to championships 2 different ways. We won, you know, a co-regular season title, and then we won the conference tournament. There's a lot of different avenues. Those paths vary each year, and you have to pivot and change and adjust. But I lost track, Linda. You know, This is me. I lost track. So
okay, how about scheduling?
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So I wanted to be sure it wasn't just me. Okay. So when we talk about scheduling, competitive scheduling. First of all, I want to play everyone. I want to play everyone who's ranked in the top 25 over and over and over again. I want us to be that team that doesn't fear anyone, that we understand that building a really tough preseason schedule isn't necessarily going to be about walking out with all the wins, because, you know, a lot of the records are, you know, 20+1 season, 20+1 season, and that's going to get harder the way we're scheduling. It's going to get harder because this year, you know, our schedule hasn't been announced, but a few little snippets here for inside information, right? If you tuned in, you deserve this. So, you know, at home, we're opening up at home, and we've got Mizzou, Washington State, and Cincinnati. So, and then us, 4 NCAA tournament teams from last year opening weekend in our home court. Like and 2 of those were top 10, top 15, right? Second weekend, we go to Pitt. Pitt was number 2 in the country last year, arguably number 1, and returned most of their roster. They are just an excellent team, excellent program. We come back, we go to Ball State, and they've been competing for champions in the MAC. And, you know, Kelly's doing a wonderful job there. And then we go to Marquette. And this, as you guys can see, we're building quite a rivalry with them. And at some point, it's going to tip the way of the Redbirds. But you don't know that until you keep playing them. And I don't care if I walk back with that loss, because I do believe you have to play that game. I do believe that is a match we deserve. And we're going to keep showing up and doing it over and over and over again. And, I appreciate that our fans, for the most part, get that and understand and want to see us compete at that
Right.
level. So, kind of then talking about the Valley, I think you have to set the tone in preseason, and you, as a coach, you balance, are we going to have confidence? If we don't beat Illinois, do we have the same confidence to take on such an adverse season last year? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a risk I got to take. And then as the situation presents itself, I jump in and ask those questions of my team to make sure they're prepared to understand the reality of the situation. So, we try to use preseason as a building block of challenge, of opportunity, but also to give us a taste of what we're working for in postseason, And I think the last thing I'd say about the Valley, I think it's open. I really think it is wide open. I've been, obviously, Northern Iowa and Bobby Peterson are just first class. They're so good. I think they're the stabilizer of the conference personally. And as we continue to put good performances on the table, I hope we can to do that as well. There's a new coaching staff at Missouri State. I'll be interested to see. I think they're doing a great job recruiting. Bradley down the road, I know they're the rival, and Carroll is clearly they come to play us, and we've got to find a way to be better against them now, point blank. We all know the reality of it. So I love our league, and I love our fan base and the way they get behind us in our league. It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Got a question here from the audience, quick, kind of on that same topic, and those of you participating, feel free to send in your questions with the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. But Coach, everyone's probably wondering, will you and the team be back on campus this fall?
Yeah, so I gave you the schedule, so my hope is yes. But here's the thing, you guys, about the fall. It is uncertain, but every sign right now, all the trends are pointing to a season. Our season may look different. In my coaching circles, which various conferences, they're talking about an abbreviated season. They're talking about, moving things up pre-Thanksgiving. Like this is all speculation, and we have to wait to see how the NCAA operates and what they decide will be, best given our current climate of COVID and safety and health of our athletes. But one thing that I think is promising is that in all my conversations, the thing that dominates the conversation is, what steps are we taking to make sure that our athletes are safe and healthy? We can't prevent everything, but we can have a process in place that provides us a kind of a path to compete. That's what I'm really excited about. And so I do believe there will be a season. I don't know what it will actually look like yet, but I know at other campuses, athletes are back on campus. I know our campus is starting that process as well this summer. So all signs point to yes, and I hope to see you there in Redbird Arena.
Yeah.
Well, take that one more step, Leah. I know there's a special NCAA committee discussing other sports, others being they've opened up for football, women's basketball. What is your best guess of when they're going to allow you to come back to campus, and how much time do you need to prepare your players to be able to compete in the fall?
Yeah. So, it's an interesting concept with men's and women's basketball going back to campus being, a winterish sport. And where we're a fall sport. And so to me, that was an interesting idea, but I also recognize the role that football and men's and women's basketball play for all sports. They're a trendsetter, and they help pave the way for each of us to have opportunities. And I value that. And I think that's important. So to me, it's about what helps all of us, a rising tide lifts all sports in athletics. And so that lifts all ships, and so that's what they do for us. So I think, as we come back, Illinois obviously has to operate within Illinois. The state of Illinois has to operate with Illinois parameters. And so we're doing that. I think I could see us being back, late June as a sport, and hopefully then in more full force in July. In terms of prep for season, our sport's always been unique in that we get 2 weeks of preseason and we play our first match. Yeah. We don't get an 8-week segment, and we don't get contact with our athletes in the summer where some other sports do. And I go back and forth about whether I think that's positive, candidly. I don't know. One day I can say, yes, I want to be working with my freshmen this summer specifically, and the next day I say, well, that's where they earn their wings. That's where they develop leadership by driving their own cause, and let them do it and let me get out of the way. Did I empower them enough to do that on their own? That back to that leadership question. So in terms of enough time, I think we'll just take the time we're given. I don't mean to cop out of that question, but it is just so important to get back. Our team, I told them the other day, I said, you guys, there's indicators that we're going to be back this summer for those who can. And they were literally jumping up and down doing this, and I didn't even, for me, because I'm living it every day, I didn't even realize the emotions I would see from them just to get back this summer. When, you know what that means? It means conditioning. It means they're going to run their tails off, and they're fired up for that, So in my heart of hearts, it's about what we're given. We're going to be sure we're safe. I'm not going to come out and put them through the same conditioning regimen. We're going to pace them back in. We're going to keep them safe with whatever time we're allotted to try to put the most competitive team on the court every day.
A quick question. Do you think those of us fans are going to be able to be in the arena to watch your tournament in the beginning of the season?
I think so. I think that's where Illinois State, like I said, we have great support, but we have a facility that's large enough, and here's my challenge to everyone. I'd like to average 1,000 fans a game, and I'm not backing down. We're right over the 800 mark right now.
Yeah.
So, but I would love to put 1,000 people in the stands spaced out, because we have the space to do that where other teams and other facilities can't. So what they might have a competitive advantage with, with training or being back on campus sooner because they, are in a state that has opened sooner, for example, can we have a competitive advantage by getting more fans to influence the match? So I think we will. I believe we have the space to accommodate a safe environment. And that's what I know our support staff is working for.
Just get there early and get your seat.
Yeah.
I know Shelby wants to say something, but I'm going to toss this in for our participants real quickly. You have a Raise the Banner ticket campaign, and fans need to get out, buy their season tickets. They have new loges where you can have service there while you watch the match. There's just some really cool things going on. I think we can get to 1,000 a game easily because this team is fun to watch.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Following up with that, just kind of wrapping things up here, Coach, what's your favorite part of being a Redbird and getting to lead the Redbirds?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. Well, it's funny, because I asked my daughter, if anyone who follows us on Instagram or social media, my daughter and I did a takeover, last week. And one of the questions someone posed to her was, what's your favorite part of game day with the Redbirds? And she said the fight song.
Oh,
she loves the fight song. And, because we sing the fight song, obviously introductions and stuff, but it's a tradition in Illinois State to sing the fight song on the court with the fans and band and everyone at the end. Well, Edie Jo obviously gets to go on the court to do that with us as family and sing that's her favorite part, is being with the athletes. And I guess I'd have to say I can echo that because, yes, the singing the fight song, but the time with the team, the time with my family, their family, and being away from them is normal in the summer, but in these circumstances, it feels more strained. And so my heart's been heavy because I can't, be right beside them, helping them, supporting them, and I have to do it virtually. And they've done a great job for each other. But the best, I love being part of the Redbird community, and that's just not my team. Like everyone who showed up, and some people aren't affiliated with the Redbirds, I'm sure, but there is a sense of community here that is so tight knit and so supportive and loving. And we see each other for our differences, and we value each other for our strengths and encourage each other through the weaknesses. And I get to sit here with Linda and Jill, you guys. Like, this is awesome. Every time I run into them, I'm learning something new because they have an experience I don't have. But what is special is that they're willing to share it. It's not about it's theirs, it's ours. And I feel that in everything I do here. And, you know, that just brings me so much pride and gets me up every day. So thank you for that opportunity. And thank you guys for sharing a cup of coffee with me.
Oh, there you
I
go.
barely drank mine. I've got to go heat it up now.
I know, I gotta have to go heat mine up.
Yeah.
Leah, there's no question that you are making Redbird volleyball and Redbird athletics better every day. And you so much to the table that goes so far beyond what happens on the volleyball court.
Thank you.
You're making our female athletes better people who are going to go into the community and make a difference like you have. So
Oh, thank you.
you for everything you have done. We will all be there to support you, whether we're in the stands or watching you on TV, but we wish you all the very best of luck this season. And we thank everybody for joining us.
Thank you. And if you guys have more questions, please submit them. I'll try to get back to you sometime this week by email. So if you do have a question and you'd like me to address something or answer something specific that we didn't cover, if we didn't get to it, because I know I'm long-winded, please shoot it over, and Shelby will get me those questions, and I will try, my staff and I will try to personally get back to you. But I want to also say thank you to you and Jill and Linda for taking the time. This conversation was so fun. Obviously, it's easy for me to talk about the team and the program. And I just want to say to all the fans, you know, what can you do today to serve someone else? What can you do today to make someone else's life better, their situation better, their environment better? How can we grow as people? How can we grow our community? How can you grow someone else by the actions you're taking and the love you're giving? So that's my challenge. I know I'm sappy, but there's a place for that. And I want to be sure everyone has a space to do that. So thank you, everyone. And I end every meeting with, go you Redbirds.
Redbirds.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.